What's good, YouTube? These are 8 reasons you suck at dating, or 8 dating mistakes that you're making that is costing you your happiness. Before I start, I just want to say, if you haven't already, I'm going live January 15th in a private event. Tickets are just $10. If you're interested in the event, click the link below. Now into this topic. The first reason that you might suck at dating, or the first dating mistake that you might be making that's costing you your happiness, is your fantasy is about the shell of a man and you disregard his core. Everybody has a type. Everybody knows in general what they want. Everyone has an imagined figure in their head. The fantasy of you is of a certain type of energy, of a certain type of personality, of a certain type of stature, of a certain type of physique, of a certain type of skin tone. Like, we all have this perfect person in our head, and then the people that we meet have to match up with that as closely as possible. The problem is that the interior core of who that person is always kind of a question mark. We can only imagine the things that we would prefer in a relationship. We can't really predict the future and predict a person's personality based on our imagination. So when we meet a person, instead of dealing with the reality of who they are, as long as they fit the outside core, as long as they fit the image of the person that we've always imagined, or they can mold themselves into that way, we really kind of disregard who they are on the interior, and we actually replace their reality with our fantasy. We develop a relationship with them where we're falling in love with our idea of how they should become, or how they could become, and how we hope they would become. That's why it's so easy to have a crush on someone you've never actually spent time around. To be daydreaming about them, to be falling in love with a person who you really haven't spoken to a whole lot. Because you're not in love with them, or you're not falling for them, or having butterflies for them. You're having butterflies with the potential that they could become that fantasy person. It's almost like when people get really, really happy and really euphoric when they think, man, we might hit the lottery, it might be this time. And they say, well, the odds are you'll have fun. People are really running around excited about the lottery when the odds are you just spent your damn last $20 on a ticket that won't get you a damn bit of nothing. Right? But the imagined outcome of us finally getting to that fantasy excites us, and we start to attach ourselves to that. What you need to do instead is deal with the interior of a person. Figure out that person's reality. Detach yourself from your fantasy. A lot of times I have my clients sit down and write down the facts of a guy versus their feelings, versus the thing that they hoped for. A lot of times those things aren't even in relationship to each other. Start taking proper inventory of what a person is and who a person is, what has built them into what they are, and what they're trying to present to you. Get away from your fantasy and get away from judging a person solely on the shell of who they are, meaning the outside, the things that you can see, the things that you prefer, the voice, the style, the stature, all of that dumb shit. It's good, it's important, you should be attracted to your mate, but you should also actually be fed well in a healthy relationship. So again, you might be very shallow in the way you're approaching your relationships, and your fantasies might be determining who you fall in love with, not the realities of those people. Moving on. The second reason that you suck at dating, or the second dating mistake that you're making that's costing you your long-term happiness, is you start every relationship focusing more on being accepted than deciding what to accept from a person. So many of you have failed at dating for so long that you're naturally on defense. Your fears and anxieties take over as soon as you see the perfect shell of a man that I talked about in reason 1. From that point, when a person has just simply met your type, you've determined that it's more important that they accept you than you actually take inventory of who they are, that you quantify the qualities that they have, that you qualify them to be a part of your life. So instead of this being an even 50-50 series of light interviews and dates, it becomes you interviewing for them. That's it. You go on this campaign to prove yourself, to validate yourself, to show yourself worthy of a person that you don't even know. Because you're more focused on being validated, you're more focused on being accepted and not being rejected than investigating this man to see if he even has what it takes to be good to you. You just stop critical thinking. It all becomes about, oh, I hope he likes me. Oh, I hope he likes me. Well, what is he made of? What does he stand for? What does he believe? What are his intentions with you? What type of person is he? None of that shit matters after you determine you like him and he gives you butterflies. You can do that shit for 40 years if you want to, but it will lead you in the same place you are now, watching these videos in 2060? Do you really want to be in that place? I hope not. Start focusing on if someone is qualified to deal with you and join you in your life. Moving on. The third reason that you suck at dating, or the third dating mistake that you're making that is costing you your long-term happiness, is your actions aren't in line with your long-term goals. So many women I meet tell me that they're looking for love, that they want a relationship, that they want a family, that they want a future with a person, that they want healthy love. But all they do is put on freakum dresses, go out, meet guys, get screwed into couches, and then complain about guys not being good or not being honest anymore. I live in Ohio. If what I want is a vacation in New York, should I go west or should I go east? If I go west, I'm going toward California. A lot of you are doing the equivalent of going toward California when you really need to go to New York. That's the goal. That's the long-term goal. That's the long-term plan. But you've gotten in your car and literally traveled the wrong direction, metaphorically speaking, when you date. If you want relationships with health, if you want relationships with connection, if you want intimacy, if you want emotional transparency, if you want vulnerability, you can't just keep dropping your draws for the first person that you have a crush on. You can't keep chasing a man's validation who you haven't first qualified. You can't keep trying to be a man just because it's unfair. You can't keep just trying to be a savage because it works for some girls. If you want healthy relationships, then you have to chase those things. You have to make a man connect to you. You have to require that a man speaks to you and exchanges his ideas with you, his feelings, his fears, his ambitions. You have to require that he cares about your relationship status with him and that he's clear about what he wants from you. You have to require that he's able to become a great friend to you. He has to have those friendship qualities, because a relationship is just a friendship with sex and a lot of compromise. A relationship is just a best friendship. So if that's what you want, if you want a real relationship, why are you just jumping into bed with everybody? Or why are you just deciding you like a person before you even qualify them for the real long-term job of being a best friend, of being a life partner? Chase the life partnership qualities in a man. Stop going left when you need to go right. Stop chasing the best sex in the world or the best attraction that you've ever had, and start chasing the best friend you've ever had if you want a real relationship. I don't know if I made that point well. I think my California analogy kind of sucked, but you get my point. Moving on. The fourth reason that you suck at dating, or the fourth dating mistake that you might be making that is causing you your long-term happiness, is you've been doing the same thing for years. You refuse to make adjustments. You fall into the same patterns over and over and over again, and you wonder why you get the same results. You're still shocked that things aren't working out, and you've been doing the same things with either the same guys or the same type of guys for a long time. The best gift you can give yourself if you're looking into this new year hoping to have a new you is disrupt your patterns. Do the very opposite that you would normally do. Don't be afraid to lose or fail. Too often we get so stuck in these patterns, and even if they're not working for us, they think, oh, the next one, we'll get the next one, we'll get the next one. Back to those lottery tickets. Some people have been playing the lottery for 20 years and they never won a damn dollar. But they're out of about 3,000 or 4,000 in just $1 lottery tickets. Stop hoping that the very next one goes perfectly, that you're just right on the cusp of this winning. And start changing your patterns. Disrupt your pattern. Directly disobey your nature and your instinct to date that same type of guy, to respond to those same things. If you don't disrupt your patterns, if you won't break that cycle in yourself through actions and through selection, then you will always be in the same position with men. A lot of women have decided they don't need a man and that they're content being single. But that didn't come from a place of power initially. It's become power, and I'm glad that they've settled in their peace. But had they just dated more smart, more efficiently, more successfully, they wouldn't be in a place where they had to decide solitude. But they consistently made the wrong decisions because they didn't want to make adjustments, because they didn't think they had to, or they didn't think they should, or they couldn't disrupt their own patterns. They thought, oh, I don't want to mess anything up, or oh, I shouldn't have to do that, or I don't like those types of guys. I know I don't. How the hell do you know if you haven't actually taken inventory of who a person is? Slow yourself down, disrupt some of those patterns that you have to dismiss certain men before you actually get to know them. Stop worrying so much about if a guy is perfect, or if a guy is being fake, or if he's a closeted narcissist. Every damn body ain't no narcissist. And most of the time y'all select an actual narcissist and get abused, trying to avoid the secret, nice, closeted narcissists. Yes, they exist. But more often than not, choosing a man who's obviously flawed is no better than choosing a man whose flaws are unknown and potentially less severe. Start giving the right guys a chance. Stop doing the same things year in and year out. Break your patterns up, disrupt your patterns, betray the patterns that you've built. maybe you'll find a different result. Moving on. The fifth reason you suck at dating, the fifth thing that might be causing you your long-term happiness is all the men you date hit it and quit it. I wonder why that could be. Maybe because being a savage doesn't work for everybody. Listen, I don't mean to be offensive, but some of you are trying to be other women, right? What works for other women will not work for you. If you try on the proverbial horror shoes and they don't fit, change shoes. Don't keep trying to do things that you see working for other women because everyone doesn't have the same inherent needs. Everyone doesn't have the same backgrounds. Everyone doesn't have the same level of endurance or threshold for mental trauma or pain. Everyone doesn't handle rejection the same way. Everyone doesn't have the same gifts and the same guards against that type of stuff. And sometimes we don't know ourselves well enough, so sit down and figure out what your relationship needs are. If all the men you date hit it and quit it, that means you're giving access to men too quickly. If all the men you date hit it and quit it, it means you're not requiring anything else to develop before you lay down with a guy. If all the men you date hit it and quit it, it means that you're allowing yourself to be used in that way. Yes, these men should do better. Yes, these men should be more transparent. Yes, these men should be more manly. But they're not watching videos trying to get less ass. They're watching videos like those other guys trying to get more ass. Your ass. Just adjust. Make some adjustments. Try out something else. Get yourself a maintenance man. So at least it's one guy that you're sharing energy with and not trading spiritual energy with a bunch of random people. I understand everybody has needs. But if you like that feeling of being discarded after sex, I suppose you can continue to do what you're doing. Eventually that shit gets old and it gets tired. You'll grow weary before you find what you're looking for, which is healthy, satiating love most of the time. Sure, there are some exceptions to the rules. There are a lot of one-night stands that are married now, but there are many more million that are not. This is not for the savages or the women who are okay with the result they're getting from their sexual escapades. Sure. The sixth reason that you might suck at dating, or the sixth reason or the mistake that you're making that is costing you your long-term happiness is every man you date uses you for money and resources. This tells me that you're in a perpetual pattern of trying to purchase a person's validation and loyalty through gift giving, through favors, through nurturing, and through love. Actionable love that generally requires some kind of transaction on your behalf and some kind of receiving on theirs. When every man you date is using you for money and resources, that tells me that you're gullible. That tells me that you're too trusting. That tells me that you operate from a place of hope, anxiety, and fear of loss and fear of abandonment. You cannot purchase a person's loyalty, and most won't give it to you if they had no plans on giving it to you. People in general will let you do what you want to do for them as long as you require nothing back. And when some people accept our gifts, it feels like they're accepting our love, so we continue to give our gifts, our resources, our money, whatever we have been doing for them that seems to be accepted, we do that because they haven't accepted our real love, our actual emotional vulnerability. They haven't really exchanged any intimacy or connection with us. So what we start to seek is the validation that we've pleased them when we're giving them something. For some women, that's sex. For other women, that's money and resources and favors. Even so, if every guy that you date seems to be running off after he gets some ass or some money or some resources or some favors or keeping you around as more of an employee, it tells me that you're trying to purchase his validation, his loyalty, his interest, and his time. That is a perpetual pattern of destruction. And if it's not getting you what you want, if you're watching this video saying, damn, I kind of do that, then break that pattern. Disrupt that pattern. Needing a person's validation so badly that you need to purchase it, even if subconsciously. Many of you aren't planning on purchasing his validation with this gift. I'm purchasing his validation with this favor. But subconsciously, if you're honest with yourself, if you sit down and you ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing, most of the time it's because you're trying to prove yourself worthy of a person that generally you haven't even qualified to see if they're worthy of you. Learn to give balance for balance. Moving on. The seventh reason that you suck at dating, the seventh dating mistake that you might be making that's costing you your long-term happiness is you refuse to adjust your behavior because you think that the standards placed on women are unfair. Put simply, you'd rather be right than be happy. And you are right. But if you're watching these videos, you're likely not as happy, at least in your relationship life. So many women operate against their own interests and their own goals because they're stuck on the way that things should be and not the way that things are. They rather not deal with reality, so they operate as if the reality is inconsequential. We can all agree that the double standards placed on women are wrong, even though many double standards exist against men as well. But again, we can all agree that the double standards that women face in today's society are wrong. But what has rebelling against them gotten you? If you're watching these videos, likely not much. If you're a rebel, if you're a savage, but you're also looking for love, and you also want a real relationship, answer me this. Who has been more hurt by your rebellion against the societal standards placed on women sexually thus far? Are you the only casualty of that war? You likely are. Again, you can be right or you can be happy. My stepdad used to always tell me, boy, as much as you don't like it, you ain't gonna change the world. And that might seem like a deflating reality, but I needed to hear that because I was a rebel. Sometimes the rebellion becomes bigger than the goal. If the goal is happy, healthy, satiating, fulfilling love, loyal love, then you have to move in accordance with that. I used to operate against my own interests, simply because I understood the way things should be, but that's not the way things were. We still have to deal in reality. And reality is there are different standards in relationship to sex for women than there are for men. The spectacle doesn't get to decide how the spectator responds. So make sure that your rebellion isn't hurting you more than it is hurting whatever or whoever you believe is oppressing you. To throw yourselves at the oppressor, just to be more like them, to harness their power, isn't always the most effective strategy. Moving on, the last dating mistake that you might be making that is costing you your long-term happiness is you're not selective enough. Unfortunately, people observe your decisions and your actions. And careful, thoughtful, strategic selectivity is thought by many to be a sign or an indicator of intelligence. Intelligence is attractive. Many of you aren't selective enough because you haven't really taken inventory of what your real needs are. So everyone seems to fit your basic need of a man who's attractive, who's your type. But that's not really being selective. While you might like a certain hair type, skin tone, body type, voice type, style, or personality profile, that really doesn't suit your needs. That is not actually being selective. To be selective is to understand your own needs and then select people with the qualifications and the characteristics and the traits that would best serve you long-term in a relationship as a life partner. Many of you don't know what your needs are. So you're not selecting those. You're not being selective. You're indiscriminately bumping into men, having exchanges, relationships, sex, situationships, and then being upset that you're not finding what you're looking for. But you don't know what you're looking for. You haven't set a goal. You haven't set a mark. You haven't aimed at anything in particular other than has to have a pair of balls. What are you getting from all that effing you're doing, from all that random dating you're doing, from all that Tindering you're doing? Not being selective, choosing people indiscriminately, everybody getting a shot at you, everybody getting an opportunity to waste your time. Men often observe a woman's selection process, and when they see that you're not choosing men based on qualifications that they respect, they put you in a certain categorical box. Be more selective, be more strategic about the things and the qualities and the type of people that you decide to focus on. Having a crush, having butterflies cannot be making these decisions for you. You need to qualify men based on your needs, and you need to be more selective, more strategic, and more purposeful and intentional about who you spend time around and who you give validation to and seek validation from. Anyway, I hope that helps. I've rambled long enough. This probably was a long-ass video. My bad. Anyway, I'm going live January 15th. If you're interested in going to that live, it's just $10. If you have questions, if you need answers, and you cannot afford my one-on-one coaching program, which most people can't because it's not cheap, show up to this live event, get the questions that you need answered, or at least get pushed in a direction that could help you. Anyway, follow me at KFig24 on Instagram. I'll get with y'all later.